To explain a show like Panty Stocking with Garterbelt would be like describing colors while also being on an acid trip, because that's what watching this anime makes you feel like. Only this is the kind of acid trip that's fun to experience, because Panty Stocking is just so far apart from what you would expect from your typical anime series. It falls on the borderline of insanity, which should come to no surprise, considering that it was made by Gainax, the same people that gave us this. But nevertheless, this is Hyrule, and welcome to Anime Bugendai, as today I'll be reviewing Panty Stocking with Garterbelt. So get ready to repent, motherfuckers! So here's the rundown. You have two angels, Panty and Stocking, who are kicked out of heaven due to disorderly conduct, and are sent to Dayton City to fight and vanquish ghosts, in which they earn heaven coins for each ghost they defeat, and this is so that they can buy their way back into heaven. To combat ghosts, they have special weapons. Panty turns her panties into a pistol, and Stocking turns her stockings into twin katanas. You also have Garterbelt, the stereotypical black priest who yells at them for not taking everything seriously and sends them on their missions, and thus the antics ensue. But none of that shit really matters, because you don't watch Panty Stocking for the plot. Rather, you watch it because of how bombastically absurd and crude this anime is. Rather than having a central plot, instead each episode is broken up into two parts, each part having a different story like you would see in shows like the Powerpuff Girls. I should also mention that this show is filled to the brim with Western references. Like, for example, you have one episode where Panty Stocking have to fight these sperm ghosts, and they throw in a joke about Saving Private Ryan, because why the fuck not? You also have the characters quoting famous movies such as Pulp Fiction.
May the thunderous power from the garments of these holy delicate maidens strike down upon you with great vengeance and furious anger.
And those are just a few examples, as there are so many references thrown in that I couldn't even begin to count all of them. But despite all the Western references they throw in this sloppy joe of a show, it is still considered an anime, even though it has the art style of a Craig McCracken cartoon mixed with the humor of South Park. But nevertheless, this is the kind of show you just want to turn off your brain for, as each episode just keeps getting crazier and crazier, and the humor can sometimes be a hit or miss depending on your sense of humor. Me mostly, I found everything to be hilarious, even though most of the jokes was about Panty being a sex-crazed, bottom-feeding, holy fuck, transformation scene. Yes! I love you, Panty Stocking. So all in all, if you like the show's crude humor and the fact that it makes fun of Western pop culture, then chances are you will enjoy the hell out of this show. But if that isn't enough to convince you, then oh well. In terms of characters, we got stereotypes and archetypes, so pick your poison. In all seriousness though, these characters are so straightforward and easy to explain that it doesn't even take a rocket scientist to figure them out. First things first, we have Panty, the Paris Hilton lookalike whose traits mostly consist of being a snarky bitch and a total slut who fucks every man she sees. You then have her sister Stocking, who resembles Twilight Sparkle if she were a goth chick. She is highly intelligent and more level-minded than her sister, but can easily be brash and rude when provoked. She also has a craving and obsession for sweets, and while she isn't into sex like her sister, she loves bondage. You also have Garterbelt, the stereotypical black priest whose role is to be the caretaker of Panty Stocking, as he is essentially the man who gives them their missions and is usually the voice of reason. Not only does he have a checkered past that he'd soon forget than remember, but he also has a fetish for bondage and young boys. Wait, this isn't a racist thing, is it? Later on, we get introduced to a whole slew cast of supporting characters, such as Briefs, who is the nerdy guy with the Ghostbusters getup, who's in love with Panty, who is always repulsed by him because she's a bitch, and she doesn't care because she's a fictional character. It's not like she has feelings. What the fuck is wrong with me? And of course, who could forget the Devil Sisters, Scanty and Esox, who I guess you could say they are the arch rivals of Panty and Stocking, and they also have their own transformation scene as well as their own quirks and fetishes. Like incest. Feel uncomfortable yet? Yeah, I think every character in this goddamn anime is one big sex joke, so you might as well go all the way, or no way, Jose. But nevertheless, the characters in this show are easily the best part, and where the show shines. However, my biggest qualm with the characters is the fact that Panty gets most of the screen time out of all the other characters. I don't know if it's because the creators of the show loved Panty's rebellious and sex-crazed nature, but I can honestly say that she isn't my favorite character of this show, and that I'd prefer to see more from Stocking because Stocking in many ways is a character I can better relate to, whereas Panty is the personification of every sex-depraved dream that I ever had when I was a stupid teenager. Fuck you, angsty sexual oppression! The animation and art style is rather unique for this anime, and though Gainax has been known to produce some very appealing visuals, as was the case with Gurren Lagann, Panty and Stocking's artistic direction is more along the lines of American animated series like Dexter's Laboratory or the Powerpuff Girls. There are, however, a handful of scenes drawn in the more traditional anime style, most notably the transformation scenes. The defeat of each ghost is shown with an intentionally cheesy live-action prop explosion, which, of course, being a longtime fan of Super Sentai, it's always a beauty to behold. However, this isn't just a comedy anime, it's also an action anime, and I gotta say, this series definitely delivers, with some very impressive action scenes. One of the more notable moments is the epic catfight against Scanty and Esox, where the action is so fast-paced and fluid, and it does not feel like a waste of time. Now, there were some issues I had with the animation, like, for example, sometimes they used still images, or sometimes they had to resort to using flash animation. And this should come to no surprise, considering that Gainax has a track record of always going over budget. Example being the last episode of Evangelion, which they had to resort to using crayons. Moving on to sound, of course you have the soundtrack, which is comprised of a number of original compositions by various artists, and it maintains a club techno feel throughout, which is not only very catchy, but also incredibly befitting of the series. Some of my favorite tracks include Fly Away Now, which is used during Panty and Stocking's transformation sequence, the opening of Panty and Stocking, which is sung by a robot, and it's catchy as fuck, and Juice, which is a jazz tune accompanied with a female making orgasmic sounds. And yes, I meant every single word of that. Then you have the dub, which honestly, I could say just stick with the dub for this one. Sure, the Japanese dub has its fair share of funny moments, especially when you see the Japanese actors butcher the English language.
Fuck, son of a bitch! You motherfucker! Oh yeah, you motherfucker!
But nevertheless, this show just sounds better in English. And that's my personal opinion, so dub haters can go fuck off. Anyways, the dub has an excellent casting choice. You have Jamie Marchi as the raunchy, sex-crazed Panty, and hearing her swear her ass off is always such a delight.
How about I buy you a cake from that fancy bakery and you manage to do this without saying another fucking word?
As long as what I'm saying now doesn't count, I'm in.
Then let's make this fucking fucker pay for covering me in this fucking shit. Okay, you can reply to that.
Then you have Monica Rail as Stocking, who is absolutely hilarious in every single line of dialogue.
You mean like that idiotic musclehead piece of shit you keep on the back burner? Oh, by the way, I diddled him. I diddled him real hard. And he said I was the best fuck he had ever had. Way better than you.
And of course you have the man himself, Christopher Sabat as Garterbelt, doing the best Samuel Jackson impression he possibly can.
The negative energy created by all the plumbers who suffocated and died from the stench of clogged-ass toilets has manifested himself into a vengeful spirit. This powerful ghost utilized all the fecal matter in the city to achieve his pooty-poop physical form.
It's obvious the voice actors had so much fun doing the voice work for this dub, and I gotta say, out of all of Funimation's dubs, I have to say this one is one of my personal favorites. Not just because of the swearing, but because of how each line was carried and delivered with such enthusiasm. I've not had this much fun with a dub since Ghost Stories. And we all know how fucking fantastic that dub is. Panty and Stocking with Garterbelt isn't for everyone. If you are not into the raunchy and sexualized nature of this series, then chances are you will hate this show. But if all that doesn't bother you, then I say go for it, because what you are getting is an action-packed and highly entertaining comedy series. It has a unique art style that is reminiscent to Western cartoons. It has one of the most foulest dubs since Black Lagoon, impressive action scenes, and it's just an overall fun series to watch as long as you turn your brain off and not take any of it seriously. Now, fortunately, at the time of this review, this anime has been licensed by Funimation and is also available on Funimation's streaming service in sub and dub. And before I wrap up this video, I want to make mention of something. So far, at the time of this video, there has been no announcement for a Season 2. And I don't think that's ever going to happen, because one, the original creators have moved on to form Studio Trigger. So the original staff, they are gone from Gainax, and Gainax owns the rights to Panty and Stocking, so I highly doubt we will ever get to see the epic conclusion of the series. And what we are left with, of course, is a Gainax ending. Now, I should mention this as well. There is a special called Panty and Stocking Sanitary Box, which is an 8-minute short, and this, of course, comes included with the Blu-ray and DVD release. Essentially what this is just 8 minutes of clips that were not shown in the original series, and it's just extra scenes that were cut out from the original show. So, not a continuation. But nevertheless, I just want to say this. If they do announce a Season 2 of Panty and Stocking, I am going to be excited about it. If not, then oh well, I got the first season and I can always go back and watch it anytime I want. So yeah, this ends my review of Panty and Stocking with Garterbelt. I want to know what your thoughts are on this series in the comments section below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel for more anime reviews like this one. And also be sure to follow me on Twitter and Facebook. And if you are feeling generous, please consider donating to my Patreon page. Even if it's just $1 a month, it truly means a lot to me. But nevertheless, this has been Hyrule, and until next time, have a nice day.